The dirty head that sticks itself in must be cut off. Those aren't the words of a medieval warlord. That was a specific public warning from a high-ranking Chinese consul. The target of that threat, the Prime Minister of Japan. For decades, the waters between Japan and China have been tense, but we have now crossed a line from tension into something far more dangerous. We are seeing vicious words exchanged between two of Asia's biggest powers. China has publicly warned Japan of a crushing defeat and even issued emergency travel advisories telling its citizens to stay away from the island nation. Why? Because the sleeping giant of the Pacific didn't just wake up. It stood up, reloaded, and pointed a weapon directly at China's most sensitive nerve. The Japanese government has declared that an armed attack on Taiwan would be a survival-threatening situation for Japan itself. In the world of diplomacy, that is the equivalent of taking the safety off a gun. To understand why Beijing is furious and why Washington is watching closely, we have to look at the massive shift happening inside Tokyo. Japan is currently undertaking its biggest military buildup since World War II. It is a $300 billion gamble that changes the balance of power in Asia forever. Welcome to the new Pacific War. The storm began brewing with a massive political shift. On October 21, 2025, history was made. Sanae Takaichi became Japan's first female prime minister. At 64 years old, she didn't step into power to maintain the status quo. She stepped in when the world was on fire, and she brought a fire extinguisher filled with gasoline. Within days of taking office, she shattered a 40-year-old taboo that has defined Japanese identity. Before we move on, hit that like button so this video reaches more people who actually care about the truth behind Asia's military power shifts. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe. You don't want to miss what comes next. For nearly half a century, Japan followed an unwritten rule. Defense spending must stay around 1% of its GDP. It was a symbol of their pacifist identity, a promise to the world that the days of the Japanese Empire were gone. Takaichi looked at that rule and threw it out the window. She announced that Japan would speed up its plan to hit 2% of GDP on defense by the end of 2025, 2 years ahead of the original schedule. To the average viewer, 1% to 2% sounds like a rounding error. In geopolitical terms, it is a revolution. For 2025, Japan approved a record $55 billion military budget, the largest in its modern history, and a nearly 10% jump from the previous year. When you add related security expenses like the Coast Guard, the total screams past $62 billion. But it wasn't just the money that terrified Beijing, it was the mindset. The new Prime Minister explicitly stated that if China attacks Taiwan, Japan will not stay silent. She suggested that Japan's self-defense forces could be deployed to protect its security. This destroyed the concept of strategic ambiguity. Japan is no longer just worried about Taiwan. They are preparing to fight for it. In March 2025, the government instituted a new Joint Operations Command. For the first time ever, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Space, and Cyber units are under a single unified command structure. This is designed for one thing: speed. In modern warfare, the delay between spotting a missile and intercepting it is measured in seconds. This new command structure removes the bureaucracy so the military can pull the trigger. The United States immediately backed this play. Washington upgraded US Forces Japan into a joint force headquarters, integrating their systems directly with Tokyo's new war room. The message was clear: if you hit Japan, you hit the US. And now, the two militaries essentially share a brain. We are breaking down a geopolitical shift that changes the future of the entire world. But stories like this often get buried by the algorithm because they are controversial. China would prefer this information stays quiet. We prefer you know the truth. You can help us bypass the censorship and keep this channel alive by clicking the like button right now. It tells the system that this analysis matters, and if you want to be the smartest person in the room, when your friends talk about World War III, hit subscribe. Done? Thank you. Now let's look at the actual weapons Japan is buying to back up these threats. For 70 years, Japan's military was strictly defensive. They had shields but no swords. That era is over. Japan has decided that the best defense is the ability to strike the enemy's base before they can launch a missile. In a landmark deal, Japan decided to purchase 400 Tomahawk cruise missiles from the United States. These are not defensive weapons. These are long-range heavy hitters capable of striking targets over 1,600 kilometers, 1,000 miles away. This puts enemy coastal bases, logistics hubs, and command centers within Japan's reach. In March, Japanese naval ships began live fire training with these missiles alongside the US Navy. But Japan isn't just buying American. They are building their own monsters. They are upgrading the domestic Type 12 missile. Originally a short-range anti-ship weapon, it is being re-engineered to fly over 1,000 kilometers. These missiles will be deployed on mobile trucks across the first island chain, the string of islands stretching from mainland Japan down to Taiwan. These trucks can fire, move, hide, and fire again. It turns the entire Japanese archipelago into a porcupine of missiles pointing directly at the Chinese coast. Japan is also preparing for the next frontier: hypersonic warfare. They are working on hypersonic glide vehicles that are almost impossible to intercept. They aren't doing this in a vacuum. Japan is tightening the Quad alliance with India and Australia and signing defense pacts with the Philippines. They are building a security diamond around China. So why the sudden aggression? Why throw away 80 years of peace? Because Tokyo has realized a terrifying truth. The peace was an illusion. Japan is now surrounded by 3 nuclear-armed wolves: China, Russia, and North Korea. The tension with China isn't just about maps and islands. It is about blood. It is an old scar that never healed. To understand the rage coming from Beijing, you have to look back at the 1930s. Japan wasn't the peaceful nation of anime and technology we know today. It was an aggressive empire. The 1937 Marco Polo Bridge incident sparked a brutal war. Japanese forces captured Beijing, Shanghai, and Nanjing. The Nanjing massacre remains one of the darkest chapters in human history, with historians estimating over 100,000 civilians killed in 6 weeks. The horrors of Unit 731, a covert biological warfare unit that performed experiments on humans, are burned into China's collective memory. That history is why, even today, Chinese nationalism is fueled by a desire for revenge. When a 10-year-old Japanese child was fatally stabbed in China in 2024, it happened on a sensitive Memorial Day, a tragic reminder that the war never really ended in the hearts of many. Today, China is channeling that historical anger into the world's fastest-growing navy. In just a few years, China added more ships to its fleet than the entire navies of India, Australia, France, and the UK combined. They have unveiled the Fujian, a supercarrier equipped with electromagnetic catapults, allowing it to launch heavy jets with full bomb payloads, projecting power deep into the Pacific. Since 2012, China has used this power to pressure the Senkaku Islands, which they call the Diaoyu. What started as occasional fishing boats has turned into a daily siege. Massive Chinese Coast Guard ships, some larger than US destroyers, patrol these waters every single day, challenging Japan's sovereignty. In late 2024, China launched its biggest military exercise in 30 years, involving 90 ships and 100 aircraft practicing a blockade of Japan. For Tokyo, the message was loud and clear. We are practicing for your funeral. If China is the fire in the south, Russia is the ice in the north. Many people forget that Japan and Russia technically never ended World War II. They never signed a peace treaty because of a dispute over the Kuril Islands, known in Japan as the Northern Territories, which sit just off the coast of Hokkaido. For decades, this was a frozen conflict. But when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, Japan sided firmly with the West. Putin retaliated instantly. Russia declared the peace talks dead. They banned Japanese fishermen and began turning the Kuril Islands into a fortress. Moscow deployed advanced S-300 V4 missile systems to the islands. These aren't there to stop fishing boats. They are designed to track and kill Japan's expensive F-35 stealth fighters. Russian and Chinese bombers now fly joint patrols circling the entire Japanese archipelago. Russian submarines lurk in the north, while Chinese destroyers patrol the south. But the most dangerous threat isn't the biggest military, it's the most unpredictable one. North Korea doesn't just hate Japan, it actively identifies Japanese cities as nuclear targets. Pyongyang now possesses an estimated 50 nuclear warheads, and crucially, they have miniaturized them to fit on missiles. They have hundreds of Rodong missiles that can strike anywhere in Japan. They have even unveiled underwater nuclear drones designed to create radioactive tsunamis to destroy naval ports. And now, North Korea has sent troops and weapons to aid Russia, cementing a three-way alliance of dictatorships right on Japan's doorstep. The geopolitical chessboard is moving faster than at any point since the Cold War. We are watching the formation of a legitimate East Asian NATO to counter this northern Chinese alliance. If you want to stay ahead of mainstream news and understand the military strategy behind the headlines, make sure you are subscribed with notifications turned on. Now, let's look at the most controversial part of Japan's new plan: the nuclear question. The pressure is so high that Japan is discussing the unthinkable. For decades, Japan held to the three non-nuclear principles: not possessing, not producing, and not permitting nuclear weapons on its soil. But now, lawmakers are openly discussing nuclear sharing, allowing US nuclear weapons to be stationed in Japan during a crisis. This single discussion has given Beijing sleepless nights. A nuclear-armed Japan changes the entire calculus of the region. But Japan isn't waiting for permission. They are building a $320 billion shield over the next 5 years. The strategy is layered defense. Layer 1, standoff capability. Japan is developing new submarine-launched missiles that can be fired from standard torpedo tubes. Layer 2, hypersonic defense. The scariest weapons today are hypersonic missiles that glide and maneuver at Mach 5+. Traditional radar can't track them, so Japan and the US are jointly developing the Glide Phase Interceptor, GPI. Layer 3, space and cyber. Japan is launching a constellation of satellites to track missile launches in real time and investing billions into cyber warfare units to blind enemy radar before a shot is even fired. Layer 4, future air dominance. Japan is looking beyond the F-35. They have partnered with the UK and Italy for the Global Combat Air Programme, GSAP. They are building a 6th-generation fighter jet set to fly by 2035. This jet will use artificial intelligence to fly itself and control swarms of loyal wingman drones. But perhaps the most telling sign that Japan expects war is not the missiles, it's the logistics. Japan is quietly building hardened ammunition depots and fuel reserves on its southern islands. They are reinforcing civilian infrastructure. They are building shelters. One lesson learned from Ukraine is that wars last a long time and you run out of bullets fast. Japan is ensuring it can fight a prolonged war, not just a short skirmish. Japan's transformation is complete. The Pacific pacifist is dead. What is rising in its place is a nation building a fortress so strong that no single country can intimidate it, and no alliance of dictators can corner it. Japan has decided that in this new, dangerous world, peace is not protected by hope, it is protected by firepower. This is the most significant military shift in Asia in 80 years. Do you think Japan is right to rearm, or is this escalation pushing the world toward World War III? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you learned something new today, share this video. The world needs to know what is happening in the Pacific. Thanks for watching.